Mountain Boy is exploring for gold and silver in the Golden Triangle region of British Columbia. We've outlined 3 targets that we'll be drilling over the next few weeks, and all of those targets have been outlined based on an enormous amount of earlier work. We'll get to that in a moment. But first, let's touch briefly on the corporate picture. We've got about 49 million shares outstanding. We just completed a $3.25 million financing, so we're well funded through this phase of exploration. Eric Sprott is now a significant shareholder of the company, and management owns about 20% of the company. So we're very much on the exactly the same place as other shareholders in motivation to move this company forward. Now, by now, everybody's aware of the Golden Triangle and the incredible endowment of gold that this region has, but not everybody's aware that the Golden Triangle is also one of the very small number of billion-ounce silver districts in the world. So it has an incredible endowment of gold and of silver, and of course copper and other metals as well. But it's that silver endowment that people have really missed. Our projects are focused on gold and silver, so it's really important to understand that massive endowment of silver as well. Mountain Boy has 4 projects in the Golden Triangle, but we're really focused on our American Creek project. This project is located about 20 kilometers north of the deepwater port of Stewart. We're 5 kilometers from a major paved highway, and there's a high tension power line that follows that highway. We've got road access from this highway right onto our property. And in fact, you can drive right up to the old Mountain Boy mine. And that's a huge difference. When it was mined in the early 1900s, the only access up there was with pack horses. So we've got great access, we're close to infrastructure, and we're building on an enormous database of earlier work. Now, what's really important to this project is that we are just east of the Premier District. So this area is one of the most important historic mining districts in British Columbia. And it's about to go back into production. Ascot Resources has published a feasibility study. They're working on permitting, and they expect to have the project back in production in the not too distant future. So Premier District and our property that we've consolidated over the last couple of years. There was a lot of work done on this property over a period of decades, in fact. High quality work. It was done by multiple companies and individuals operating independently on small plots. So and in addition to assembling all that historic information, we've had 2 seasons now with boots on the ground. A really top-notch geological team has been out there and tied together that historic information with new observations and confirmed a lot of the information, but it's really important they've added a lot to it. Now, this is like a jigsaw puzzle. When you look at one piece of a jigsaw puzzle, it doesn't mean very much. But as you start to pull together a number of pieces, then a picture begins to emerge. And that's exactly where we are with this project and understanding this geological picture. We've assembled a property, we've pulled together all that historic information, and we've ground truthed it and expanded on that historic information. The geological team is led by Lucia Tenney. Lucia's had a lot of experience in this area. She's a top-notch geo, and she's got an exceptional team of geologists working with her on this project and our other projects. That team has made some transformative advances in understanding the geology of this region. The most important thing is that they've discovered a previously unmapped intrusion, and it's really important. It's an early Jurassic intrusion, which is exactly the same age as the mineralizing intrusions for most of the major deposits in this region. That intrusion has been mapped along the eastern edge of the property here. And we now recognize that that intrusion is the driving force. It's the heat engine and the source of minerals for the mineralization on the Mountain Boy property, on our newly acquired properties all up and down the American Creek corridor, as well as properties on the other side of American Creek. So when we combine that historic data set with the results of our recent work, and in particular that discovery of that major early Jurassic intrusion, a geological model is emerging that ties together all of these mineralized occurrences along the American Creek corridor. And what it points to is that we have a replica of the premier camp. We've got the same scale, we've got exactly the same age of host rocks and the same age of intrusion. We're seeing exactly the same styles of mineralization. And what we have, in short, is we've got a geological system that looks very much like the Premier District in terms of scale and potential to host mineralization. This is not an offshoot. It's a distinct mineralized system that is primarily on our ground. And by the way, the big green blob on the top part of the map is property that's held by Pretium. And they've drilled just north of our property. They call it their American Creek project. And they got great results just a couple of kilometers north of our property there. So moving on, looking at it now from the perspective of the premier camp, we're looking back now at our property is primarily on the other side of this ridge that runs along here, but our property drapes over the top of the ridge, and this is part of our property up here. So we're literally looking down on Premier. The mill down here is about to go back into production. A lot of the historic production came from deposits that were found in this area. Ascot, who's now controlling this project, are continuing to make new discoveries. They've made some important discoveries further north here at the Big Missouri and the Silver Coin, which were deposits that were mined as part of the premier camp in the historic mining. And of course, this project has great road access back to Stewart, and it's got hydropower on site. In fact, the power line that runs up to the Bruce Jack mine crosses over this property, and it also crosses over the Mountain Boy property. So fabulous infrastructure and on its way back to production. And our property up here, literally looking down, that part of the property is just 6 kilometers from the premier mill. Now, back to our property. So we are focused on this geological model that holds that we have a big mineralizing system that runs all up through here. It's centered on the Mountain Boy mine, which is a past producer cluster of very high-grade silver veins were mined there in the early 1900s. And we've got these 3 target areas that we're going to be drilling. I'll get into each one of these in a little bit more detail. The Mountain Boy target is centered on this cluster of veins that were mined in the early 1900s. High-grade ore was taken down from about 900-meter elevation on the mountainside with pack horses, and then by horseback back to Stewart, where it was shipped off by boat. Our drilling is looking to follow up on the results of the historic production work. We've got all the old production records when we've been in all these old adits. And there was also some drilling that was done in this area over the last couple of decades. One of those drill holes in 2006 hit 5 kilos of silver over 5 meters. Now, long, complex story as to why they didn't follow up on that. We can get into that when we have more time, but for now, the key point is a hole in 2006 that hit 5 kilos of silver wasn't followed up. That's going to be the starting point for our drill program coming up over the next few weeks. Now, our next target area is going to be testing the continuation of this cluster of veins as they extend north. There's been a lot of work done on the surface, but the property was held by different owners until we assembled it over the last 2 years. And a lot of work has been done on the surface on this property, but it's never been drilled. So they sampled the veins on surface, they got some great results, and it's clearly a continuation of the same cluster that has driven the mineralization and supported the historic mining at the Mountain Boy mine. Our third target is actually a new discovery. If we go back to this picture, this part of the property that looks down on the Premier District hosts a new discovery that we call WOLFMOON. That area has recently emerged from ice cover. We see no evidence that anyone has ever had boots on the ground on this part of the property. After we acquired this part of the property, the geological team, Lucia and her cohorts, went out and conducted a systematic exploration program on this property. Now, you can see, anybody that's geologically oriented, you can see the enormous and intense alteration that's prevalent over a large area on this property. And as I say, no evidence that anyone has had boots on the ground on this particular area before. Surface samples from this area included 28 grams of gold and up to 1,200 grams of silver. So it's clearly a well-mineralized alteration zone. It's part of a big hydrothermal system that is rich in both gold and silver. So a very exciting new discovery that was made just last summer. And we will be drilling that as part of this upcoming drill program. And by the way, the mineralization here is very similar to what Ascot has discovered on their discovery that they're calling Silver Hill. And Ascot used IP, a geophysical technique, on their Silver Hill target, and it proved very effective. So that's exactly what we'll be doing on this property over the next few weeks. We're going to be conducting an IP survey that will help us in determining the orientation of those veins that we're seeing on surface as the final step before we conduct a drill program. We're scheduled to begin drilling in early October or early September. We're going to have 2 drills. So we're going to get as much drilling as we can possibly get done during September and October. We'll be drilling about 4,000 meters that'll be spread across these 3 target zones. It'll work out to about 15 drill holes spread across the 3 target zones. Between now and then, we'll be conducting the IP on the WOLFMOON zone. We're going to be conducting a LiDAR survey right across the property. That's going to be very important in providing very detailed, accurate topographic information, survey information to tie together all these prospects. We're going to have the geologists on the ground on all 3 target zones. All of that work is going to be aimed at fine-tuning locations and orientations for the drill holes. We will be doing a little bit of work on a couple of the other targets, a couple of other projects during the next couple of months, but that's really just setting them up for a bigger program that'll be done next year. One of them, we may possibly do some drilling on it, depending on what we find on that initial geological reconnaissance. And that target has already seen 178 drill holes that have provided some very interesting results, outlined a major mineralized area. It was previously seen as being low grade. We're seeing now a lot of reasons to believe that we can go in there, reinterpret it, and increase the grade of that zone and quickly elevate it to becoming a very interesting project. But that's secondary to the drill program that we'll be conducting on the American Creek project. So looking forward, and we're going to be doing the drilling when we make a discovery. And I say that because on the Mountain Boy target, there's already a historic resource. It was done a long time ago. We don't put a lot of value in it. We certainly haven't talked about it. But we've got enough evidence there to say that there is something there of real significance. We're going to be adding to this. But the point being that we are within trucking distance of the premier mill. There are 2 other mills nearby where trucks are delivering concentrate to the port at Stewart. They're driving back empty within 5 kilometers of our Mountain Boy target. So we have 3 mills within sight. But our major objective here is not finding a satellite deposit for an existing mill. We deeply believe that what we have here will provide enough ounces that this will become a standalone mining operation that will be operated by a major mining company. So that's our longer term objective, is finding that large scale deposit that will be operated by a larger mining company.